Welcome to the Heartification podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. She is an international model and a former national figure skater. Please welcome my next guest, Maddison Lynn.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
Well, art is such a broad, wonderful thing that we get to experience all the time. There's so many ways that a society can view art these days. You know, you can go to a museum, you can go online, you can create art. And I feel like art is used in so many ways, and it's how people express themselves on a certain level. And to me, I define art by using the gifts I've been blessed with to help make society a better place through education, through passion, and by having that specific vision to, you know, create that change on where you want to make it. So I feel like art can be, you know, described in so many ways, but when it comes to that certain specific way to look at it, that's how I kind of approach it. The world is your oyster to, you know, show the world and to talk to the world through art. Like, you can do whatever you want, literally. And I've even experienced it a couple times where I had to, you know, take a step back and really think about it, because you have the world as your oyster and because you can literally do whatever you want. Sometimes that's intimidating, and you're just going, okay, so what if I do that? What are people going to think of me? You know, what are they going to do? What's going to happen? And I feel like it's how you handle those questions, whether it pushes you forward or not. That's kind of what I've experienced so far. You have to have that confidence in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, in your abilities, nobody else will. Nobody. It's just like, if you don't love yourself, how can you let someone else love you?
Yeah, that's wonderful. And there's many different forms of art, and art generally helps others feel special. So do you consider modeling to be a form of art?
110%. Yes, I do believe that modeling is a huge thing of art, because there's so many things that go into modeling, right? So it's, as you look at modeling as a whole, you know, you have all these different areas that have to play a role to create that artistic piece, right? So you have the model, but then you have the photographers, you have the makeup artists, you have the designers, you have the music, you have the lights, you have the choreographers, you have so many different artistic elements coming together to create this one big piece. So the reason why I find modeling so amazing, especially when it comes to runway shows and watching all of these visions and everything come together, it's just very exquisite. And you kind of have to look a little bit deeper when you watch fashion shows and stuff, and really kind of look at the uniqueness, because there's so much that goes into being a model in fashion shows and photo shoots. There's so many different elements.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when all of those elements come together, it makes a wonderful thing.
Yeah, creates a bit of explosion of art, as they
say.
Yeah.
And do you consider fashion to be an art as well?
I do, for a lot of the reasons that I just explained, actually, because you have so many pieces of art coming together to form that final masterpiece, or that final performance, or however you want to call it. One thing I find really fascinating, especially when it comes to the designing standpoint, like, I'm not a designer or anything, but I've come across a lot of designers in my career so far. And every designer is different. Every designer has a different vision, and sometimes even designers design their clothes through stories. They want to tell a story, whether it's something that happened in their life, or a certain color means something to them, or whatever it is. And a lot of designers have been creating pieces lately through social movements, because there's such a big social movement right now going through the fashion industry when it comes to different body types. You have skinny, you have curvy, you have plus size, you have all these different things, and you have different skin colors. So you have dark, white, brown, black, all that kind of stuff. And it's so wonderful to watch these social movements create such a masterpiece of art. And people are really gravitating towards it. And yes, there are some areas of the fashion industry that just won't change. And that's okay, because that's their forte. That's what works for them. But, especially in the fashion industry, because there's so much education that needs to be taught so people have a better understanding, watching these social movements happen just through expression, passion, whatever it is, it's just amazing to see how art is changing lives. So it's quite cool, if you ask me anyway.
Yeah, and art can really have a huge impact on someone's life.
It really can, because it's how you choose for it to impact your life as well, right? You look at art every day if you really think about it. You could be on your way to school and you pass by an art gallery, or you see a sign for a marketing standpoint. That's still considered art if it grabs your attention, right? If you look behind me, you have art. So it's just how it speaks to you and how it impacts your life, and that will be different for everybody. So I find that's the cool part.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you choose who you work with from an artistic perspective?
Finding people or choosing people to work with from an artistic perspective is actually, it's really fun, because everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own vision. So when you put all that together, that's really when the magic happens. And I find you really have to be aligned with the people you work with. You really have to be on the same page, because there's so much that goes into a project. And I could be on here for hours explaining to you how much really goes into a project. So when you choose to work with people, or when you are working with people, because sometimes you don't choose, right? Sometimes I've worked with designers that I don't get to choose. But it's so cool, because I go in with such an open mind and really appreciate and understand why their piece looks like the way it is, or why they've chose to done what they've done. And having that open mind really creates the magic, because like I said, everybody has a different approach, a different vision to how they perceive their art. And it's just like any industry, right? Everybody has a way of doing things, and you have to have a good connection with your colleagues and everything like that, because that's when it gets the juice flowing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just that's how I look at it anyway. When you have that connection with people and you can really align yourself, it's quite cool to watch how things turn out.
Yeah, and it's important to have that strong, good connection.
Yeah, that's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you understand where people are coming from, right? Because everybody has their own idea.
Yeah. And have you always been interested in fashion from a young age?
Nope. 100% no. And that's what boggles people's minds. I went to school to be a sports psychologist. I was a figure skater at a young age, since the age of 4. And I skated all through grade school, high school, university. I skated on a national team. The team and I were ranked second in Canada for our synchro. And it was a very cool experience. And it's actually amazing how much art is involved in that too. But that's a different story. And then actually halfway through university, my whole plan of what I thought I was going to do changed. And, I had to kind of sit back and really think for a second what was going on, because it was not planned at all. And before I got into fashion, I couldn't wear heels. The first time I put on a pair of heels, I fell flat on my face. I tripped over a carpet, actually. Ask my mother about that story. I wore black. I could care less about anything in the fashion industry. So the fact that I'm here today, compared to where I was however many years ago, it's 4 or 5 years ago already, it's mind-boggling to me. So just even telling you that story is quite crazy. But when I got into this industry, or found it, I guess, I was so fascinated by it. And I just wanted to learn more and more and more. And it just grew over time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And has your perspective on fashion and modeling changed, like compared to when you were skating to now when you're modeling?
I mean, in the moment, I'm sure it has in some ways. Once you get deep into an industry, whether it is fashion or I don't know, accounting or the culinary industry, any industry you get deep into, you learn a lot. So yes, of course, my perspective changed because the deeper I got, the more I learned. And, I feel like it's how I handled what I learned is what really helped me thrive in what I do, because, all industries aren't always awesome, fun, 100% positive all the time. You're going to have your struggles. You're going to have your days where you're questioning yourself if you're in the right industry. But I feel like when you're at those low moments, that's when you need to pay attention, because you are all of a sudden exposed in a way about stuff that, oh, this is tough. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. Do I really want to continue this even though it's hard? And that's where I feel people really question situations like that sometimes, because things are not supposed to be easy. They're not meant to be easy, because if everything was easy in life, we would all be successful to the point where the world wouldn't grow, right? And everybody has the ability to be successful. And I find the way people define success, there's all different ways that you can define success. Everybody has their own way of describing that. So when it comes to my perspective of the industry, it did change. But even though I've had low moments, and I'm not afraid to say that, they've really, really empowered me to create those amazing moments that I've had and that I will continue to have, because I really like to learn when I make a mistake, or I really like to understand when I don't get something.
And how does modeling and participating in fashion shows make you feel?
Alive. It makes me feel alive. It just ignites that passion of why I got into the industry, to be honest with you. Like when I don't know if you've done a fashion show before. I hope you get to experience it. You haven't? Okay. I hope you get to experience it, because it's a lot of fun. And people think it can be intimidating. It is, if it's new, because you have people staring at you and there's a lot of lights flashing in your face and a lot of people taking your picture, and it's very intimidating. I don't know another word to describe it. But when I'm in the moment, I don't see any of that. I don't even realize what's going on around me. It's like a blur. I don't hear anything or see anything, to be honest. When I walk on the runway, I'm all about the piece I'm wearing. I'm listening to the music. I know where I have to walk. I'm watching the models around me. So I'm just worried about that. And it's really cool what happens. I can't really explain it. It's just being in the moment. And whether you play sports, because I played a lot of sports when I was younger, I still do. I mean, when I'm not all glammed up, I'm in a ball cap and yoga pants every time. I love my sweats and I love my ball caps. But even when you play sports, when you're in that moment, when you're taking that foul shot, or when you're about to spike a ball, when you're playing volleyball and you're in that moment, nothing else around you matters. And it's the same thing when you're on the runway.
Yeah, and as you said, like art really can make people feel alive. I mean, when I'm painting, sometimes whatever's around me just kind of goes out of focus.
Mm-hmm. That's another great way of expressing it. Just like everything goes out of focus. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And are there any other areas of art that you're drawn to?
Yeah, I really love my music. I'm a really big fan of music, and I'm really starting to appreciate art as well. There's so many different types of pieces that are out there now, and I actually like going to art museums and different art shows, because it's just amazing to watch what comes out of someone's brain and puts it on paper or on a board or on or whatever it is. It's just so fascinating. So yeah, those are the other types of art that I pay attention to.
Yeah, and are you attracted to any particular music artist or just any other artist?
One of my favorite music artists to this day that I've been a fan of since I was a child to now is actually Paul McCartney. He's one of the Beatles, the only one of the lasting Beatles, actually. And I think the thing that fascinates me the most about him is that through his whole career as a Beatle and even after the fact is he couldn't read music. And it was just mind-blowing to me, the fact that he could create and impact such amazing pieces of art or music for people to relate to cry to feel happy to, without being able to, understand a note. It to this day just blows my mind. So I just gained so much more respect for someone who literally was gifted and blessed with the ability to create such amazing art through music.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I didn't even know he couldn't read music.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm still shocked. I actually, a couple days ago, I typed it into Google just to make sure that I read that correctly way back in the day, and it checks out. Can't read music.
My artification project is all about giving back to the community, specifically to those with disabilities. So how do you give back to the community?
Giving back to the community is probably one of the most important things to my heart and what makes me tick, because at the end of the day, putting everything aside, putting our lives aside, there are people out there that need our help, and that's what makes the world go round. And one organization that I'm becoming more involved in is the organization called the Covenant House. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it has to do with taking homeless youth off the street. So there's many reasons why youth end up on the street, whether it's, mental illness, problems in the system, problems at home, alcohol abuse, it goes on. And the money raised goes to these kids so they have a place to stay and can build their life that they felt like they once didn't have. And then they go out into their community in the world once they've found themselves again. And it's very moving to watch those type of things kind of happen in front of your eyes, knowing that you've kind of played a role in that. And also when I get to come home, I'm very big into out of the cold dinners, again, feeding the homeless, and volunteering at my church when we do, lunches and stuff like that. And it's putting yourself in a humbling situation to remind yourself that you are lucky. And there are a lot of people on this planet and around you that aren't as lucky. So if you can be that inspiration or that breath of fresh air to them that day, it means more than anything for these people. So it's a nice thing that really makes me happy.
And is there one form of art that affects you professionally and another one that affects you personally?
I never really made that separation between how it affects me, personally and professionally, because when something affects me personally, I almost connect it to my professional life, because what happens to me personally actually inspires me to make a change into my professional side. So, I create this idea in my head. I get this inspiration. I'm like, oh, that's an idea. I'm going to apply that to my professional side. So I guess I've never really made that separation. So if anything, I actually connect the two. Every part of art plays a certain connection to me in a way, but I really connect with people, honestly, on a social standpoint. I'm really just good at listening, and I find I'm almost like a therapist through art, if that makes sense. Keeping people safe is so important to me. I've been hurt in my life, mentally and physically. I've been taken advantage of. I have, I've gone through a lot, and I don't ever want to see that happen to anybody else. And so when people come to me in fashion, or just because they have a question, I really connect to them through words. I really do.
So how would you like people to get in touch with you?
Since we have the wonderful thing called social media now, it's really easy to get in touch with people now. With all this amazing experience that I've had, I'm actually bringing that into teaching now. And I've learned a lot of secrets along the way, like a lot. And I am here to teach them to anybody and everyone who want to know them, because learning the secrets of an industry where you can learn how to maneuver, be safe, do it the right way, have fun, that's the way to do it. It's a wonderful industry, but there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
You're very welcome. I wish you all the best of luck with your journey. You're going to do great.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.